Welcome to the Quantum Biology Collective podcast, where we break down the practical applications of this emerging science, starting with healthy light habits and going wherever the quantum superhighway takes us. This is your host, executive and life coach Meredith Oak, with a quick reminder that podcasts are conversations, not consultations. But if you're looking for one of those, do check out our free practitioner directory at quantumbiologycollective.org.
If you aren't actively and intentionally optimizing your circadian rhythms, it's probably because you don't fully understand how important they are to every aspect of our health. It's basically impossible to be fully healthy or to recover from a disease or an illness or to get rid of lingering symptoms if our circadian biology is dysregulated. So, we cover this topic a lot on this podcast, and that's the reason why. It is foundational, but it's very misunderstood or ignored in most approaches to health, whether it's natural approaches or mainstream medical approaches. And so we really try to cover that here so that we can give everyone the opportunity to truly live their best life and get to the place they want to be. There's always something that we can do. Maybe we just haven't found it yet. And so to talk about light and gut health, we have a returning favorite guest, Carrie Bennett. She's brilliant at explaining the science behind all of this. And she also has a lot of clinical experience working with people who come to her after years and years of struggling through various other systems and not getting the resolution to their symptoms that they are looking for. So if it seems a bit weird that you can heal your gut by sleeping in a dark room and going outside in the morning and wearing orange glasses at night, like what do those things have to do with each other? You are really going to enjoy this podcast. So without further ado, here is Ms. Carrie Bennett on light and digestion and gut health. Enjoy. All right, Carrie Bennett, welcome back.
Thanks, Meredith. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So last time we talked about fatigue. If anyone hasn't listened to that episode, highly recommend. This time we're going to talk about gut health.
Gut health. We also talked about ether. We have like quite a variety of topics
that's right.
that we talk about.
We went way off into the ether. That is also a very cool episode. So yeah, people should watch that too.
Yeah, but you may want, if you're new to this, you may want to start with guts.
Yes. Fatigue, gut. So yes, we have our health-oriented topics, and then we have our way at the forefront of what quantum physics and biology is uncovering topics. Carrie goes in all the directions.
It's fun.
All right.
It's fun. I love them.
So sorry, my chair just fine. Okay. So let's just start with a nice general overview of why we should set our circadian rhythms. Like, why is that so important? Because I know for me, I used to be like, yeah, if I'm jet lagged or something, I need to think about it. But otherwise, what's the big deal?
Yeah, the general rule there is that every task in the body is timed, has an optimal timing to happen. From the broader levels of let's say, when to kind of wake up the gut for stomach acid production and pancreatic enzyme production, to when we should communicate to the thyroid gland that we might need to be a little more metabolically active, to when we need to repair and restore our tissues and clear out the damage. And so everything has an optimum timing, which would happen normally because it happens through the light and dark signaling in our local environment. So it's called our circadian rhythm. And human physiology has been entrained to this light dark rhythm for millennia, centuries, right? And when timing is on, every cell in the body knows its task. It knows what it needs to do. It knows how active it needs to be. It knows how much it needs to kind of rest and repair. And when that's off, we're not getting optimum timing of anything. And if we're looking to heal things in the body, such as tissue damage or leaky gut, we have to know when to repair. If we're looking to support things like low stomach acid or low digestive enzymes, we have to know when we can anticipate food entering the digestive tract. And that is all tied to a primary signal in our environment, which is it light outside or is it dark? And if it is light outside, what is the light telling me at this given time of the day? And we've got ways to sense that and tune into that and optimize every aspect of our health in relation to those signals.
Okay. So if a body is functioning optimally, let's say we're a human where we belong in nature, or as I realize, like we are nature. So when we're connected to the part of the whole of which we are a small piece, and our body is functioning optimally, our cells just know what to do when. And when we mess up the signals, they get thrown into chaos, which in this conversation we're going to focus on as gut problems, digestive issues, all of the things you just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it. And I gave an analogy just popped into my brain with my mentorship group the other week about how this communication happens. Like we know light signals timing, but how the heck does every cell in the body know what time of day it is? And so I really think this is going to help people understand how we've gotten so off track in terms of timing and health and then the ability to restore at night. And so the clock in our brain, there's a clock in our brain that receives information about the amount of blue light in our environment entering our eyes. And that's a beautiful timing mechanism because that will, from sunrise, we start to get blue light. It increases predictably until solar noon, and it decreases predictably until after sunset, and it's not there anymore. And so that's great, right? My eyes are continually picking up the amount of blue light and communicating it to this clock in my brain. But then how then does this clock in my brain communicate that information to every cell in my body? It does it because it's what's called a central oscillator. It literally vibrates. So I want you to think of this as almost like a metronome. And before sunrise, it's keeping the beat of darkness, right? Let's call that a very like slow tick, tick, tick. And then as the sun breaks the horizon and we get more blue light, the ticks become a little faster. Tick, 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 right? And so it's literally oscillating. And because of the fact that I've got this beautiful fluid that we call structured water or exclusion zone water everywhere in my body that it picks up on these types of vibrations, I'm able to sense time based on how fast or slow this oscillator, this clock in my brain is vibrating. And it's designed, as you could imagine, to be a slow crescendo and decrescendo. These days, what it looks like, what that vibration looks like is this. I wake up, it was dark, I had a very slow tick. I look at my cell phone, middle of the afternoon. Then I put my cell phone down and maybe I turn on a couple of dimmer lights in my house to get ready, for work. Maybe it goes tick, 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 tick. Then I put sunglasses on, I go outside, it's sensing darkness again. And so I'm getting a very slow tick. Get to the office and I'm in front of a computer. And then, I go home at night and I'm anticipating a very slow tick. And then I turn on overhead lights and I'm looking at a TV screen or my cell phone. And again, it's going tick, 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 tick. It's a very that's a chaotic signal. Can you imagine just what that would feel like if we could actually hear that type of vibration happening? It would be like, wait a second, we're expecting this smooth increase in vibrations and decrease. And now it's all over the place. And when those vibrations are all over the place, because we're not keying in on certain light frequencies and certain darkness exposures at night, that's why my cells don't know what the heck they need to do. And they go into chaos. And a cellular environment that's in chaos produces more inflammation and doesn't know how to clear the inflammation out or doesn't know when to clear the inflammation out. And so that really is the basis. It's got to view it as almost like a metronome, literally a vibrating timekeeper that can get just way out of whack and essentially not allow the body to heal leaky gut or any tissue damage for that matter.
Wow. Okay. So it's like if we assigned someone a task and they started doing it and 30 seconds later, we're like, no, go over here and do this. And then 30 seconds later, we're like, no, lie down on the floor and take a nap. And then it's like, that's what we're doing to ourselves when we don't take into account what the light frequency is telling them.
Exactly.
Okay. Crazy. All right. And so I want to talk for a minute about food, because obviously when it comes to gut microbiome, traditionally we have focused almost exclusively on food and maybe supplements. And I was reminded, because I have a son taking freshman biology, that we are taught the only way a cell can make energy is by giving it food. Um, and so, if you could just talk about how that's we now know a rather limited perspective, and then B, where light comes in regards to food.
Sure. We have to view, okay, so first and foremost, the traditional paradigm of energy is we eat food, we've got these cycles such as the Krebs cycle to break down that food and strip the electrons from that food and essentially send those electrons to the mitochondria to make ATP, which is supposedly the energy currency of the cell. I mean, we've spoken about this, and so many, people who we know in this quantum biology world have talked extensively about how that's a small portion of the energy that we can derive from our environment. It makes sense that humans, potentially starting off as a nomadic species, didn't necessarily have food security or guaranteed food. So we had to have other ways that we could get energy sources, and we do. If we view the energy currency of the body as not ATP, but instead we view it as almost maintaining a healthy voltage, which means electron rich or full of electricity, which we now know in the research, that's what all research is pointing towards, that we need healthy voltage inside of our cells in order to maintain adequate energy to run all of our programs. Then we say, oh, well, where else can I derive this voltage from beyond the electrons from food? We now know that the water in our body acts as that, and that if we can maintain hydration and this water battery with things like sunlight exposure on the skin, we have that voltage. We can earth and get the earth's electrons through our tissues and into our body where they're lacking. Again, that's restoring healthy voltage. We can even move, and movement generates piezoelectricity through our connective tissue. That's why I think being sedentary is actually damaging to health. I don't think it has much to do with calories burnt or not burnt. I think it's lack of movement, which is why now we see the effect of what's called an active couch potato, meaning that person who spent an hour at the gym, let's say burning 800 calories, and then sits all day, actually does not derive health benefits from that. We need regular movement throughout the day. And so that goes to how our movement actually, this electricity, this ties in more of a traditional Chinese medicine perspective of how movement and this movement actually can fuel our organ systems through the meridian pathways. And so we have so many ways that we can actually get energy beyond food, and it's very limiting, in my opinion, to view food as just an energy source. What food is two things, in my opinion. Food is nutrients. Certainly we need nutrients, right? There's building blocks and vitamins and minerals and cofactors and phyto-enzymes and nutrients that we need to support our overall health. So that's great, right? We do need nutrients, but we also have to recognize that food is information about my environment. Meaning, right now, I couldn't find a watermelon growing and eat it if I tried. This is springtime, early, not even late winter, right? In Michigan. It's feeling like early spring, late winter in Michigan right now. And so when I'm outside and I'm syncing up my circadian rhythm and I recognize that, yeah, the sun's starting to get a little higher, a little bit more intense, but not anywhere near as intense as it could get in the middle of summer. And all of a sudden I eat a plant, let's say a watermelon that would only be growing in really intense sunlight. The light information is stored in the glucose, in the electrons of that plant. And as I feed myself this, there are nutrients in a watermelon, but there's also light information about my environment. And so that light information gets released to my gut microbiome, and it gets released to my mitochondria as another way for my body to tell what time of year it is. So we've got rhythms to tell the time of day, and we've got rhythms to tell the time of year. And those all need to sync up in my gut in order for me to have a healthy, balanced gut microbiome, because my gut microbiome adjusts according to the light that's entering my eyes or not. So it'll change throughout the course of just 24 hours. And it will also change in response to the intensity of the light it receives from the food, like the watermelon. It's going to say, oh, wow, we didn't realize there was this much fiber and fructose rich stuff in the environment. We got to modify our composition to become bacteria that can handle that type of fiber and that type of fructose. And so now we're looking at a different set of gut microbiome diversity. Whereas in the middle of winter, when maybe I wouldn't have access to a ton of produce at all, I would have a different type of microbiome that wasn't necessarily able to digest a ton of plant fibers because it wouldn't be needed. And so these are signals that the gut and the microbiome are constantly keying in on to understand what it can anticipate in terms of what it needs to digest that I could find in my environment.
Okay, so when it comes to food, to the food aspect of healing a gut, seasonality is the key thing to look for. So even if a food has all of these healing properties and it does this and it does that, if it's something that would not grow within 100 kilometers or miles or whatever you want to use of where your body is living, it's going to further confuse your gut in the same way that the chaotic light signals are confusing the gut.
It absolutely can. It absolutely
Okay.
can. What I would add to that too is like, perhaps, could someone who has a strong circadian rhythm and no gut symptoms whatsoever, could I right now eat a banana if I wanted to every once in a while? I absolutely could, but it's the continuous rhythmic, like just dysfunctional signaling where it's like, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Our body doesn't know that. Is it summer? Is it winter? Our body doesn't know that anymore. That's just, and so when we add that into the mix of food that we can get from all over the world any time of the year, it just really sets our gut up for not knowing and not being prepared, which then can definitely drive gut dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, which is also, the most extreme way that we view this, as you alluded to, was in studies on people with jet lag. And we know that jet lag exacerbates IBS. And inflammatory bowel diseases. It exacerbates, or it can have an impact on gut dysbiosis and change the microbiome. It can impact our stomach's ability to respond to making adequate stomach acid. It changes gut motility and the movement of the food through our system. And so jet lag might be an extreme thing to think about. It's like, wait a second, I'm not traveling across the ocean anytime soon, but we are in perpetual jet lag these days simply because we don't know what time of day it is. And the we that I'm talking about
Right.
is that central clock in the brain.
Right. So these states that we think of as extreme, like jet lag, like shift work, which is classified as a carcinogen, we think, well, I'm not traveling. I don't have I don't work the night shift. Those things don't apply to me. But what you're saying is if we're looking at our phone at 10 o'clock at night, or we're looking at our phone first thing in the morning, we basically are jet lagging ourselves or putting ourselves in the same situation as a shift worker.
Totally.
Okay. So I just want to highlight that because I know that gut issues are, there's very pervasive right now, and it's so painful and frustrating. Like, I really think like not being able to like just have a nice normal relationship with food and have it cause havoc and pain in your body it's painful on a lot of different levels. And so what I hear you saying is that if we have a clear understanding of the factors that cause chaos in our body and we reduce those as much as we possibly can. So somebody who's really sick might need to be stricter than someone who's just got a little extra gas or something, right? We want to reduce those chaotic influences as much as possible so that the body can get on track to do what it knows how to do.
Completely. That's exactly what it is. And
Okay.
this comes from a ton of personal experience with my own health. My gut was trashed. And just seeing people in clinical practice with insanely inflamed guts with so many gut symptoms from that range into fairly mild, like you said, like bloating, maybe some occasional constipation, to just literally having 15 to 20 bloody, watery bowel movements every single day. And I've
Oh my
seen these
God.
people's guts heal by
Wow.
focusing on circadian rhythm. Because
Wow.
here's what we have to be aware of, right? Like maybe this is the common thread, right? Remember, I went to I got a master's degree in clinical nutrition to try to heal my gut, right? And my adrenal fatigue. And so in the process, I thought, oh, I'm going to do an elimination diet. I'm going to do a 4R or 5R gut protocol. And then my gut's going to be healed. And after eliminating gluten, I didn't eat a lot of processed foods, but after eliminating mostly gluten, I did notice a little bit of support and my gut started to feel a little bit better, right? I wasn't doubled over in pain in the same way that I used to be. But my assumption is that in order for my gut to heal, it would take weeks and months of this type of strict nutrition and tons of supplement. Like I need glutamine and I need probiotics and I need all of these, this really intense supplement protocol for my gut to heal. And then I got introduced to light. And I now know that my gut the gut lining is designed to literally turn itself over and create an entirely new healed lining every 2 to 5 days. And so
Wow.
right, like we're kind of said, if you're not getting faster results with your gut health and you're not using light, you have to recognize this as a thing, because the only way that the gut can actually heal and regenerate a new lining is when it knows that it's darkness. That is when tissue regeneration and cell division turns on. And so at night, the brain has to recognize darkness to literally signal tissue regeneration in the gut. And if it doesn't, that night, that gut's not getting repaired. Okay, fast forward the next day. We don't realize this is a thing. The gut's again not being repaired. And maybe by reducing the inflammatory insults, we're supporting our gut a little bit, like, less processed foods, less sugar, less, processed fats and gluten and things like that. That's good, right? I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but we're not even coming close to truly supporting the healing of the lining. You can give your body as much glutamine as you want for your gut lining. It will not be as effective unless you allow your brain to signal darkness and turn on the regeneration pathways, the tissue regeneration pathways, which rely on timing. They are clock genes and they rely on timing. Brain has to tell you it's darkness because the pineal gland needs to make a lot of melatonin. And that's not happening if we're not blocking the artificial light at night. And so once I realized this, I mean, it was a game changer, right, Meredith? Like, what I used to think of as, I used to identify, which I've worked on my mindset a lot, but I used to identify as saying, I am gluten sensitive. I have gluten sensitivity, and it went from, I have severe gluten sensitivity to I'm gluten sensitive to, I don't choose to, but I ate a whole bunch of what I thought were non-gluten containing crackers, a couple months ago. And just was waiting to be like, oh no, in about 2 hours, I'm going to be doubled over in pain for about 6 hours. And then the next day I'm going to be exhausted and then have a lot of joint pain and be horribly bloated. And I'm going to have really stinky gas. And I'm going to have some diarrhea. Right? I was like, I knew what I would have anticipated because that's what I had experienced before. And those symptoms never came.
Wow.
And I've heard that happen many times. It's like, wait a second, while we choose not to eat the inflammatory foods, if they do happen to trickle in here and there unexpectedly, my gut can handle it. My gut can heal from that inflammation. And I'm not on any supplements. I'm not focusing on a 4-hour, 5-hour gut protocol. It's like, there is something powerful about understanding your circadian rhythm and how that signals gut health and healing. And then that gets amplified when you understand how light on your skin is also a very soothing signal for the gut. And those things combined, I think, are game changers for people when it comes to allowing their gut to truly heal.
Wow. And what I think is so powerful about understanding light is it's just such a relief. If you're somebody who struggled or has a child who's struggling and you're go over and with the food and the things and then it gets a little better and then it gets a little worse and it's just so disheartening. It's just such a tough way to live. And it's like, okay, if up to now you didn't know about the light piece like that, this is such good news. This is great news because you've already got so many great things in place to then accelerate the healing by giving your body the signals that they need to be able to do what they need to do.
Totally. I'm not going to name names, but we have a woman who's gone through the QBC program who happened to be my neighbor for a few years in time. I think it was divine timing for sure. And she experienced just this. She is the most well-researched mom on the planet, right? And her son, she was like, why does my son have allergies, eczema? Why does he vomit every morning when waking up? Why does he get headaches? Anaphylactic reactions to probably a half a dozen to a dozen different foods, and using light with it. And it was cool because I don't typically get to interact with a client, if you will, because she asked me about it, and so I didn't say anything until I get asked, but she asked me about it. And I don't typically get to interact with a client on a daily basis, but because we're neighbors and our kids we're playing together, it was great. And we started utilizing these circadian strategies and getting the sunlight on the skin, which was very painful for him at first because he had high histamine levels. But once we did it for approximately a month, it was like night and day. The kid did not wake up vomiting anymore. His bowel movements were normal. And fast forward over, she recognized this as a really important thing. Fast forward to the fact that there was at one point in time where he literally got exposed to one of the foods that he was anaphylactic to. She calls me up. She's like, oh no, he ate this. I called 911. I don't have my epi. I'm just waiting for them to come to bring me, and when they show up, he's just sitting there and he's like, Mom, I'm good.
Wow.
Right. And the paramedics are like, well, we don't think he needs an EpiPen. And but she had experienced that so many times in her life. And then to recognize with just a couple of different additions to the support that she'd already given him, it was a game changer.
Wow. And it's so interesting to me that she was the most well-researched mom on the planet, right? Because when you are blessed with a child that has a lot of what sort of such illnesses that mainstream medicine doesn't really have adequate answers for, you do become that person.
Totally.
And yet there was nothing about light until she met you.
Right.
That it's just not out there yet.
Not yet, but it will be. It has to be, because people are in her position and they're like, what am I missing? It can't be another.
Yeah.
I'm not missing an herbal tincture, or I'm not missing another supplement, right? While I love certain herbal tinctures in certain circumstances, they only work when the body has the timing right, when the circadian signaling is accurate, right? They're designed to do healing. Like these protocols that are designed to heal will give the body the opportunity to heal. It's
Right. Yeah.
it's impressive.
And especially in ancient modality like herbalism, right? When that was developed, you didn't have to tell anybody about circadian rhythms because that's just how we lived until the light bulb was invented. So, I've talked about this before, like acupuncture and all of these modalities that are
Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine.
Very, very old. It's like they didn't have to have light protocols because there was no option not to be circadian optimized. It was sunlight, darkness, or fire, right?
Exactly. Your only materials that were your building materials and your clothing were such that they always kept you connected to the free electrons from the earth, to Earth's magnetic field, to the Schumann resonance, to all these signals that our body is keying in on for optimum health. It wants to sync up to these. And so you're exactly right. They're beautiful modalities, but even they are missing this piece because they were developed at a time when everyone had an intact circadian rhythm.
Right. We hadn't messed with it yet.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so interesting about that gluten piece. I mean, I had that experience in my own family. My oldest child, when she was around 8, like she had dark circles under her eyes. She had diarrhea all the time. And I took her to a naturopath and they did the food sensitivity testing, and her gluten sensitivity was off the charts, like literally off the chart. Like the bar that was reading out her sensitivity ran out of space and ink on the paper because it went like past 11. And so, yeah, we were very strict about being gluten-free for years. And as we started to incorporate these principles, I eased up a little bit on it. And she doesn't eat a ton of gluten, but she probably eats a little bit on most days. and she's fine.
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's crazy.
It's wild, right? It's wild. But it's cool. I think it's inspiring to just recognize that
Yeah,
this is really a thing.
it really is. And fairly simple to implement, especially compared to, a lot of other. I think it's way simpler to implement than micromanaging food, but food
Oh,
is that's
totally.
my
Totally.
brain hates micromanaging anything. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, so circadian rhythms, optimizing our circadian rhythms optimizes our body to know when to digest, when to eliminate, when to repair, when to do all of the things necessary
Mm-hmm.
for a healthy gut. And to do that, we need to be outside during the day, away from artificial light when it's dark outside, and have a totally dark room to sleep in.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Just a couple of
Okay.
different behavioral changes. So, um, waking up first thing in the morning and having a pair of orange tone blue blockers that you could put on. So even if you do have to check your phone, you are not getting that shock of blue light. The orange lens, contrary to what some people are saying, the orange lens actually prevents the blue wavelengths of light from entering my eyes. And so that's the wavelength range that's that my brain is trying to capture for telling time. And so if I basically keep these on until sunrise or so, and then go about my morning, right? Get my kids ready for school, get me ready for school. If I go outside at sunrise, or it's for me right now, it's windows down while driving the kids to school, I get that signal that the blue light has started. I periodically check in with going outside. I keep overhead lights off at all possible. I work by a window. It's closed, so it's not exactly a perfect circadian environment, but it is more optimum than, let's say, having a big LED bulb next to me. I have some mitigations that I do that I've worked with to make my eyes and brain and focus feel very comfortable. And then again, check in with the sun, go outside, take light breaks, right? Go outside. If you're at the office, anytime you can, go outside, even if it's 30 seconds. And then most importantly too, I think, is as it's dark outside in your environment, put these orange tone blue blockers back on. Because again, this is going to signal darkness to your brain, and your pineal gland is going to start to make melatonin, which is what we key in on to start to optimize tissue repair and regeneration. So healing, leaky gut healing, gut inflammation, those sorts of things. So yeah, it's not hard. It's
Yeah.
just consistency. And then when possible, especially during the spring, summer, fall, getting full sunlight exposure on the abdomen. That is really, really powerful, because the wavelengths of light there are, the red and the infrared are very soothing to an inflamed tissue. They also help the gut make what's called exclusion zone water, which is also that's really anti-inflammatory and healing. It's a voltage source, an energy source. And then the ultraviolet light is another energy source. I couldn't even go into that, but it's another energy source. Basically, by shining sunlight directly on the skin, you're charging your abdominal region with lots of energy for healing and repair. And so that is a huge game changer. And I do see sometimes a circadian shift in people who have utilized these strategies, for really, really good, amazing gut health during the summer. And they have to focus on using maybe an alternative light source in the winter, such as red light therapy, to maintain that, because their body just craves that added energy and information for repair in their abdominal region.
Right. Okay. So I was going to ask about that. Yeah, I just want to touch on, so you mentioned the body's ability to make melatonin. We could do an entire podcast. We could probably do an entire course on on melatonin and how profoundly important it is to human health, and especially as a healing and preventing all illnesses. So just if you think of melatonin as just like, oh yeah, I guess I need it to sleep, so I'll just take a pill or whatever. No, your body needs to make it, for gut, for everything. This is really, really, really important. Okay, just wanted to highlight that. And then, okay, so you talked about getting full spectrum sunlight on the gut and the healing implications of that. So let's talk about, if it is the winter, which for a lot of people it is right now. You're saying we could get a suboptimal but better than nothing health benefit from going in front of a high quality red light panel or like an infrared sauna, things like that. That
Yeah.
is going to increase our, if we have an infrared deficiency, as Kelly Bento was saying, right? So that's going to help us. How?
Infrared light does a couple of different things, and it depends technically on the wavelength range of infrared, but let's be a little bit general here. Infrared charges our body in a couple of ways. It builds this exclusion zone water, which is basically energy for the body. So as we soak infrared light into the body, and infrared light and heat are synonymous in a certain wavelength range. So people get confused with that. A portion of the infrared light we feel as heat. And so let's say we're using even something like a hot water bottle on the abdomen. Subjectively, people say, oh, it feels so soothing, it feels so good, but it's reestablishing exclusion zone water in a tissue that's deficient. In a tissue that's inflamed, you're actually in need of more exclusion zone water. And so that can be very soothing and healing. As you mentioned, the infrared sauna as well, those heat-based sources. And then a red light therapy panel, while not being a heat-based source of infrared, it's full of near infrared light. And near infrared light allows the cells of our gut to make something called subcellular melatonin, or melatonin that we make during the daytime. And it stays inside of our cells. And in the same way that the nighttime melatonin can help repair a lot of tissue damage while we sleep, on a smaller scale throughout the day, we can do tidying up and repair and clearing of inflammation all day long when near infrared light is striking our skin, because we can make more of that subcellular melatonin.
Right. And just to clarify, because people come back and ask me this and they're like, well, if it's cold out or whatever, the infrared light is present all year round, correct? It's not a seasonal like other frequencies of light that make vitamin D.
It's there all
And
year round.
evolutionarily, we were outside most of the time wearing natural fiber clothes. So we have, as humans, evolved with a near continuous exposure to infrared light.
To infrared light, and then to free electrons from earthing in all different ways that also would go to sources of inflammation and help to clear the damage.
Okay, and let's touch on that a little bit more. As we focused on circadian rhythm, adding in infrared light. If we're going to focus on food, it's seasonal, and then the final piece would be grounding. Well, movement, we talked about movement, creating piezoelectricity in the body. Okay, and so then this grounding piece, let's dive into that a little more. And then I really feel like we've covered a very nice foundation for anyone out there who's struggling with digestive issues.
Yeah, this is a great circadian start. And then I'll add two more things maybe before people start obsessing about like a gut healing protocol.
Okay.
So the earth is a source of electrons. When lightning discharges itself from the clouds to the earth, it essentially replenishes Earth's negative charge, or electricity, if you will. We're never going to feel it like a shock or a spark or anything like that. But we do know that Earth's surface is an infinite source of these electrons. And we, through our connective tissue and the water network of our body, can touch the earth with bare skin and flow those electrons into us. And those electrons can flow wherever they're needed. So perhaps in some people, they're needed to reestablish healthy blood flow. That's very important to have this negative charge around the red blood cells. In other people, perhaps they've got sources of like joint pain, let's say arthritis. You can see before and after images of earthing where a joint shows up in a thermographic scan as being a really big source of heat and inflammation. And then after about 20 to 40 minutes of earthing, all of a sudden it's cool again. There's no more active inflammation. Scans of the gut can show the same thing, right? We can show active inflammation happening in the gut that then post-earthing can get healed and cooled, because those electrons from the earth act as antioxidants. They are nature's perfect antioxidant because they go anywhere they're needed, and they can immediately start to calm these inflammatory cascades. And so it's a great practice to get into on a regular basis. Not always easy in the middle of winter, but especially as we get into the spring, summer, fall. It's a beautiful complement to these other things that we're talking about because of that ability to calm any sort of inflammatory cascades happening.
Amazing. And also another example, just how we've unknowingly cut ourselves off from a source of health by wearing rubber-soled shoes and covering our bodies in synthetic fibers where the electrons can't get through.
Yeah.
What about for grounding? What about touching trees with your bare hands? Does that help?
Sure. Anything that is growing in the earth, that has roots in the earth, if you touch it with bare skin, such as your hands or any part of your body for that matter, those electrons that are flowing through it will flow into you as well. And so any basically living earth surface or plant will be, you'll be able to do this with, including actually concrete. Most concrete, as long as it's concrete directly on top of earth and there's not like a moisture barrier, also has the ability to do this.
That's really helpful.
Mhm.
All right. Is there anything that you want to add?
This is the last little bit because, in terms of gut health, like you said, the food is the big focus. Food and supplements are the big focus. And I actually like to set all this circadian and quantum support for sure, which is profound. And then there's a couple of low-hanging fruits still. Number one, we need to be in a parasympathetic state in our nervous system in order to promote the production of stomach acid and gastrointestinal juices to digest our food and to absorb it. And so I encourage people to express a moment of gratitude over the food. This moment of like a calm breath and gratitude or prayer allows the brain to shift into this more parasympathetic state, which would then also mean that a key factor in gut health, this was key for me, was actually taking the time to just eat and not eat and multitask. And so that can be tough in this fast-paced world, but that can be a game changer. And if you can eat outside, even better, right? Because being outside has a more parasympathetic effect. You're getting the light signaling. Maybe you can even touch bare feet to the earth while you're sitting at a little table or chair. So it's a beautiful practice to get into whenever you can. And then the second thing would be chew your food. This was, again, no one really ever told me this until I thought, well, I feel like I'm sending really big chunks of food to my stomach. No wonder I'm doubled over in pain all the time. And then I get this huge stomach bloat and this horrible gas, And so I started counting the number of times that I wanted, like, how many chews would I have before I wanted to swallow? I was chewing my food 5 times, maybe 7 times. And so as I started to chew my food to baby mush, my stomach could actually do its job. I was also expressing gratitude and in a parasympathetic state, so my stomach acid could actually get secreted, right? My pancreatic enzymes could get secreted. So simple things such as gratitude and chewing our food in conjunction with this, I think, are game changers when it comes to gut health and digestion. And it's not something that's typically put up there at the top of the list.
That is beautiful and makes so much sense. And also, if you're locked in a vicious cycle of pain at every mealtime, you're probably in a state of stress without even thinking about it or realizing it. Cause it's like, oh God, how's this meal going to go? Or you're
Totally.
in stress for your child or whoever you're caregiving for.
Exactly.
So to take that moment. And then if you can't eat outside, like opening a window or even a little bit, is that helpful?
Oh yeah, if you can just even go outside for a brief moment or earth for a brief moment. Benefit of earthing we didn't talk about is within seconds, it balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. So if we're kind of in go, 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 monkey mind, beta brain, like, maybe more of a stressed out state, we can go outside. It's almost as if our body goes, oh, okay, right?
Yeah.
I'm not being chased. I'm not being threatened. It's a great practice also to get into before sitting down for a meal.
Okay. And then, Carrie, you've become like a very sought after practitioner, particularly by people who have done all the things and are still experiencing symptoms. And I think that, you teach on the faculty at the Applied Quantum Biology certification, and like the quantum piece is like the true root cause. So managing our food, managing our supplements, managing our symptoms in any way is still managing our symptoms. And so people come to you because you've developed a reputation for being able to help people with the true root cause. Are there any themes or observations that have emerged? Because what I also love about you as a practitioner is that you do look at the whole picture, right? Like this is your area of specialty, but you will look at someone's state of mind. You will look at somebody's trauma history. You will look at how they feel about how they spend their time each day. Do they hate their job? Are they in a stressful marriage? Whatever it is, you'll look at everything. Are there any themes that have emerged for you, um, either specifically around gut health or just around people who have persistent symptoms that haven't resolved?
Sure, absolutely. So yes, absolutely. Needing to tend to light environment, needing to tend to total body hydration, which involves light exposure on the body, but other things as well, including helping the mitochondria make more water. That's key. Mindset is one that I always address as one of the very first things, because like I was guilty of, I need to make sure that I am not identifying with my disease state, and instead I start identifying with like how I want the thriving state of my body to be. And so there's exercises that I help people with that. And then nervous system regulation is huge for so many. Simply being on a chronic illness journey or chronic illness healing journey, let's say 10 years or 15 years of no one believing you, allopathic medicine passing you around, functional medicine testing you up the wazoo with no results. And then, so like when you finally get to a place where you feel like you might be able to make some progress, there's a lot of nervous system support that's needed. And so I do find that that's a very, very key aspect of a lot of this as well, is having a balanced and regulated nervous system allows the body to accept what we would consider healing, like darkness at night, like light during the day, and receive that signaling as a healing mechanism and not as a threat.
Yes. So if we're in a dysregulated state, that's just another chaos input that our body has to struggle with. So if we can regulate that at the same time as regulating the circadian rhythms, then those safety signals, those healing signals, those coherent signals our body adapts to them more easily.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so if people are interested in terms of needing nervous system, I see histamine sensitivities as needing nervous system support because the immune system is overreactive to everything. I also see paradoxical reactions, meaning, oh, I took GABA to calm myself at night before bed and it kept me awake. Or I took magnesium and it actually gave me muscle cramps, right? So like these are paradoxical reactions where the nervous system is just like, what? Like it's not willing to receive the energy and the information and utilize it.
It's in such a dysregulated state that it can't process the signal properly.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Or it's like, wait a second, we haven't been in this calm brain state ever or in a long time. So nope, we're going to keep
not
you
going
awake,
there.
right?
Oh,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly.
So this GABA is inviting me to calm down, but not happening.
Exactly.
Run in the other direction as fast as you can.
Exactly.
Humans are so fascinating. So fascinating. Okay, so great news for everybody. Carrie, you're leading a circadian reset. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm doing a 14-day challenge, right? So if this information is new to you or you want to dive deeper, it is just an email sequence. It's $14, 14 emails, 14 days of talking about why your circadian rhythm is important, exactly how to set it, how to build sunlight exposure on your skin, because this is a new thing for some people, right? We've been taught to fear the light. So how can we slowly and gradually allow our body to receive all the healing benefits of the light? I talk also more about earthing. I talk about spring supports that go more towards my massage therapy background, which is like, what might need some tending to in the spring. We want new energy. We want this creative energy. We want this clearing. And so I talk about the liver, the gallbladder, the lymphatic system through my quantum lens. And there's more as well, but it's just a great way to kind of pull this information into your life and start to incorporate it specifically in alignment with the spring.
That's amazing. Okay. So for less than the cost of one book that's going to regurgitate a whole bunch of stuff you already know, just sign up for Carrie's email sequence.
Thank you.
It's the best book you'll ever buy.
Yeah, it's like, it's the videos are 5 to 15 minutes, so it's not like a podcast a day, and they're very practically oriented. But I want you to understand a little bit of the why as well. It's also good if you're in that situation, Meredith, where I want my family members to understand, right?
Mhm.
They're going to get understanding on circadian rhythm, understanding of sunlight on the skin, understanding of how to build it up and why you might not be wearing sunglasses anymore, and how that's okay. Like, we talk about all of these things.
So good and accessible. I love it. And if you're listening to this and you're a practitioner and you like want to go all the way, then yes, come and take the certification. But I know that most of you just want to feel better. Right. And you have an intuitive sense that something is missing and there's something going on that you are not attending to. And, this is probably got a lot of good clues and solutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Carrie. This
Thanks,
is
Meredith.
very fun. And yes, please share this with all the people who in your life who have chronic gut inflammation or pain. It's a heavy burden to bear. So if this helps anyone, that's the goal here.
This has been the Quantum Biology Collective podcast. To find a practitioner who practices from this point of view, visit our directory at quantumbiologycollective.org. If you are a practitioner, definitely take a look at the Applied Quantum Biology Certification, a 6-week study of the science of the new human health paradigm and its practical application with your patients and clients. We also love to feature graduates of the program on this very podcast. Until next time, the QBC.